Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We will unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. If you find yourself sitting on a comma in your life, remember, you can also talk to me without a microphone. To explore coaching with me and getting off the comma in your own life, book a call with me at offthecomma.com. In the meantime, let's get into this week's conversation. We are back with another episode of the Off the Comma podcast. And this week, I'm very excited to be talking to another one of my friends from on the other side of the ocean from where I live. And today we're talking to Julie in the United Kingdom. Julie, welcome to the podcast and tell us, how would you like to be known?
Oh, thank you, Paul. I think I'd like to be known as someone who's kind, caring, compassionate, with a deep empathy for others.
Hmm. Okay, nice. What else
Yeah.
would you like for folks to know about you?
Well, I suppose it kind of leads that kind of those kind of words. They kind of lead to well, they do describe me. I always knew when I was a little girl that one day I would be a nurse, actually. And so yeah, I just kind of just knew that that's what I would do. I used to look after my dolls when I was little, and if there was a bee struggling to, you know, to move about, I'd go and, go and look after it. And I think I've always done that. I've always looked after um, people. People are really important to me.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I did become a nurse. I left home at 18 to become a nurse, and I actually wanted to specialise actually in sick children's nursing, but in the end I went into midwifery, and I spent 20 years doing that. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I hear is this obviously this deep connection to life in general and particularly life in all its forms and then in humans and then going into midwifery, we would call that over here in the States, birth care, right? Being able to be in a helping and healing profession and be with
mm,
mothers and babies at the beginning of
yeah,
life, it seems.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And I think I've always, even what I do now, it's for me, it's always such a privilege to work with people. Probably at their most vulnerable moments.
mm,
And I think to be able to give somebody that that word of comfort, or yeah, just to be there, really, is quite a privilege. And I've never taken that for granted,
mm.
at all.
What an honor. I can only imagine the stories that you could tell after a career of being at that place in the life experience. So,
And I started Changes Forever, which is my coaching business,
mhm.
in March 2006. So
Okay.
yeah, so that was yeah, and I found my very first client in a car park. And it was actually after a networking meeting. And whatever I'd said, she must have heard, because she came over to me and she sort of said, "Oh," she said, I think you might be able to help me." And I
Ah.
sort of said, "Oh, and how might that be?" And that's how it started, because she was going through a very nasty divorce. And really, what I've gone on to develop is personal recovery coaching, which is basically helping people to navigate that personal journey when we're going through some difficult times. And I particularly specialize now in helping mainly women. I do help men as well, but mainly women who have been through sudden bereavement and loss.
Hmm.
So that could be the loss of a loved one. It could be a divorce, a separation, it could be a redundancy. It's usually there's some element of grief in there.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really trying to help somebody find the woods for the trees and to try and, event and to give them that beacon of light really and hope that one day things are gonna feel much better. And I've been doing it for 18 years now, Paul. Can you believe it?
Mm.
Yeah. Mm,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Let's get into your story today. So you and I haven't talked about, what you're going to be sharing today. I like to keep it fresh, just like I would with any other guest. And before we get into the questions, I like to always start with this question, which is as you think ahead to the conversation we're going to have the next 35, 40 minutes or so, what would be your intention for yourself in this conversation?
Should I just say what my immediate thought was?
Hmm.
That I come off the comma
Okay.
one way or the other. Yeah.
So so it
Yeah.
sounds like in this conversation, in the telling of the story, that there's a hope for potentially some direction or some clarity or
Mm.
or something to come out of it then.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my intention is to support you in your intention. And as you've already been talking about, one of the things that we do is, to hold space and to give you a safe place to be able to share your story. And that also in hearing your story, people out there will connect with that. There will be someone or some many who will say, "Oh, that sounds like me," and they'll hear a little bit of themselves in your story. It will help them feel a little bit more connected, a little less alone, and perhaps even a little inspired and empowered based on the example that you're sharing with us. So that's my intention for our conversation today. Let's jump in. Let's start with the first question. So, Julie, where have you found
Yeah.
yourself sitting on a comma in your life?
Wow. Well, as I was doing the cleaning yesterday, um, as I shared with you, I was listening to you speaking, and I suddenly thought, I am sitting on a comma. I
Mhm.
am literally, or rather, I'm like hovering on it. I'm like
Mhm.
hovering on it. And what it is something that's been coming up for me quite strongly is a goal that I set myself back in 2020.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm kind of sort of reconnecting with that goal. Yeah. Do you want me to explain what it is?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it then. So it sounds like you're
Yeah.
I love how you say hovering on a comma because everybody's experience with the comma is so unique and it's so
Yeah.
cool
I,
to
I'm always
hear.
really interested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so cool to hear how people describe it because, oh man, it's so powerful. And I hear people talk about sitting on the comma, which is how it first came to me. And then I hear people talk
Yeah.
about standing on the comma, or I'm sitting on a couple of commas, or I walk on the commas, or I move from comma to comma. And you're my first hovering. I like that. So tell us, what does that mean?
Yeah. Am I the first hoverer?
Yeah,
Oh.
what is the goal, and how does it have you hovering on this comma?
So, okay. So maybe I ought to go back a bit. Shall I
Hmm.
go back a bit? So
Sure.
when I was 11, I I just suddenly came to me that one day I would write a book. So, but Mrs. Lowe, who was my, sorry, Mrs. Lowe, if you're listening, she was my English teacher and she basically laughed at me. She thought this was very
Mm.
funny. So I just, I just remember feeling really horrible. And I just thought, oh, I'm never gonna, no, I'm not gonna do that. So I kind of put that to the back of my mind and didn't really think about it again for quite a long time. And but I've always written. Do you know what I mean? I've always
Mhm.
enjoyed doodling, and I think we all have a creativity within us, and
Mhm.
reading and writing were always something that I kind of really enjoyed. Um, Never thought I was any good at it at all because because of Mrs. Lowe. Because I listened, being a sensitive soul, of course
Sure.
I took that on board. But oh dear, no, no, that wasn't a very good
Mm.
idea.
Well, and at
Um,
11 years old, we trust the adults in our lives to know best and make decisions for us. So an adult tells an 11-year-old something,
Mm,
then it must be true.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
unfortunate that
I
that's
think
how
you're
the world operates.
well. I think it is a shame because I kind of I look at my little grandson and I just tell him he can do anything, and
Hmm.
I just you just don't know who's going to come up in the future that's going to question that. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yet
So
and yet you had this experience, and you did share with us. But I've always enjoyed writing. I've always enjoyed doodling. So it didn't stop you entirely, did it?
no, no,
Okay.
no, it didn't. No. And I I'll tell you what's just coming up for me now. When I was a midwife, um, I a very good friend of mine suggest she suggested that I joined her team of so it was like a network marketing type business.
Hmm.
They're an amazing publisher. They a lot of their books are children's books, but they they create words around pictures. So they use a lot of photographic kind of
Hmm.
things. And it was just this amazing thing. And I just thought, oh, okay, I'll join. Anyway, within 18 months, I'd built this team of, I don't know how many people. And they set us a goal of achieving, if you achieve this goal, then you got to go to Cyprus, it was. I think within about 2 weeks, I'd achieved this goal. And they were like, how did you do that? And they got me speaking at conference. So I spoke and yeah, I was in front of lots of people and told them how I did it. And that was that. And then overnight they got rid of us
Mm.
as advisors. And so that was actually when Julie became a life coach. So and she followed that as her career. I carried on in nursing, and then when I became a coach and I started Changes Forever, a couple of years in, I had kind of enough money, I suppose, and I think more's the point. I had something to brand. There was something to kind of work with. And I just randomly met this amazing graphic designer called Susan Allen, who I chose to help me develop this kind of logo. She said, and she presented me with these 7 different designs. And the last one was this bright orange sunflower.
Hmm.
And she said, that's you, Duke. Because I said, oh, that's the one. I think I got a really strong connection with it. And
Hmm.
she said, oh, yeah, that's, I knew you'd choose that one because that's you. And I said, what do you mean that's me? And she said, well, she said, you're a real sunflower in life. She said, you have an ability to be able to turn towards the sun in most weathers. You're quite resilient. But it set me thinking, Paul, it set me thinking, well, if she thinks I'm a sunflower, what are you? Are you a herb, shrub, flower, tree, or something else in the garden? What are you and why?
Mm.
And I started also to think to myself, you know, actually, life's a bit like a garden, isn't it? If we don't look after our gardens, if we don't look after our lives, what happens? And so I started using this in my work and I still use it today. I don't use it all the time, but it's something that has grown, I think, as a kind of metaphor that
Yeah.
I use. Um, and that was how my first book came about because I started to think to myself, well, actually, I really do need to write this down. So that was how my first gift book came into
Mm.
being. Its purpose was to make people think more deeply about their lives. And I think it's certainly done that. It does that. I had somebody read it the other day and they kind of messaged me and they said, oh, I just don't know what to say. Um, I'm gonna, yeah, it's really spoken to me. And so that was really lovely. And that book actually came out after a very, very difficult time in my life. very
Can I
difficult.
step in and reflect something? Because
Yeah, yeah, of
I wanted
course,
to
yeah.
reflect something as you transition into that part of the story. It's just so interesting, kind of as you look at the journey, and the journey had kind of twists and turns and stretches and narrow points and so forth. But you went from wanting to write a book as a child, being told no, and then feeling a certain way about that, and yet whether you were aware of it at the time, you were still continuing to allow it to happen, doodling and the writing and exploring. And then fast forward to kind of modern day, and you've had this kind of turn of events and a series of jobs and some experiences with a particular job, big career transition, and then here comes the book again, and from such
Yeah.
a different place, and such a strange place. Like, what it looks like to me, and you tell me where I'm reflecting any of this wrong, but it's as if that book was always there, and regardless of how you attended to it or didn't attend to it or what have you, it still was going to come back. And then it came back in such a different way, through a different path. And yet that was really how it was meant to be manifested. I mean, that's kind of what it seems like this last story is
Yeah,
has been telling us.
yeah, maybe. I think also, I think in the beginning, I don't think any of us really know what we're going to write about,
Mm,
or what's going to um what's going to come up. And
mm-hmm,
and I remember very clearly thinking to myself, I need to write about this.
mm-hmm.
This needs to be something that, you know, um, I write about.
You said you were going through a very difficult period of your life.
Yeah, yeah, I was. Well, we'd already been through a very difficult period. In fact, it was after, yeah, it was actually after the sunflower branding thing.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't got any tattoos, by the way.
Mm,
Um, my girl's dad died very suddenly, so that was 15 years ago. So it was kind of like a tornado hit without warning, and we were no longer together. You might have gathered that, when I put the girls into one room and rented two rooms out of the house, I was on
mm-hmm,
my own with them,
mm-hmm,
but they were very close to their dad.
mm-hmm.
So I always knew the kind of impact that was going to have on them. But a really, really difficult bit for me was my partner, who we lived with, Rob, who he was just one of, Paul, honestly, he was one of the most amazing men. You know, he when I met him, he was 10 years post having a motorsport accident which left
Mm,
him paralyzed from mid chest.
mm,
So when I met him, in fact, when I met him, I couldn't actually see the chair. So I'd gone into his kitchen, and I just remember looking at him. He was very tall man. So he was tall in his chair,
mm-hmm,
and he was sat behind his desk. He was a product designer. So he used to design bits of Formula One engines, all sorts of different things. And yeah, I just remember going around the corner and thinking, oh, hello, hello, hello. Yeah. And then, yeah, we were together for almost 10 years. And he was, as I say, he was amazing. He became my second husband. But 4 years before he passed away, he got really, really poorly. And it was just incredibly challenging. He always encouraged me to to go and finish this book.
What is the comma that you're hovering on right now?
So I'm hovering on this book, which is my
Mm,
second,
mm-hmm.
and the goal I set for it.
Okay.
Yeah, which was to reach 50,000 people who are grieving and in pain, and
Mm,
need to hear its messages, need to have its comfort, its understanding, and its support.
mm. And this is the grief garden path, because people can't
Yeah.
see that you're holding it up for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a goal of it reaching a specific number of readers, at minimum, and so It sounds like you haven't achieved that goal yet.
No. So what happened was it came out in National Grief Awareness Week 2019, which was in the December. Sold out of its first edition, did really well. It was being recommended by counsellors, psychotherapists, funeral directors, and and it was then that I decided I was going to set myself a kind of target, a sale, almost like a sales target. And then all of a sudden, we were in a global pandemic. I mean, what were the chances really of bringing a book about grief out just before a global
Mm.
pandemic?
And yet it's
Um,
ironic because it seems like that everybody could have used it during the pandemic, right?
yeah, well, they
Yeah.
could, but part of me looks back and I think actually we were all grieving the loss of something. And I thought the same as you. I thought, well, I even remember hearing on the news that 50,000 people had lost their lives
Mhm.
from COVID in the UK alone. I actually remember that figure because every day we'd get a figure of how
Mhm.
many people had died. But the actual reason I went completely off track was because our younger brother died very suddenly.
Mm.
I was his acting next of kin. Yeah, and I just got really tangled up with all of that um, for a good part of a year,
Mhm.
um, and then something else happened. So it, I just kind of got distracted, and it's only now that I'm kind of waking up to this goal, and that's what's been happening over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And it
So,
and it's coincided, just so as you know. I had an order for 65 copies from this amazing funeral director,
mhm.
which is in Hertfordshire, which is in the UK.
Mhm.
And I'm going tomorrow to the very last branch to go and give them their copies and the display. And yeah, so
Okay. Well, I'm curious, and I think folks who are listening who have never been through the process of publishing a book or writing a book are curious because we all make assumptions, based on things we see in popular media. So you wrote the book, you had a goal of it reaching a certain number of people, and then life happened, things that were completely out of your control. And now you're finding yourself kind of back looking at this goal. What I'm curious about is what is it that would require of you, and what is important to you about reaching this goal?
the first thing that came to me then was energy. I'd need energy
Okay.
and focus
For
and
what end? What energy and focus for what? What is it? What is
to get out there, and
ah
pick the phone up to go and talk to people and um, generate, you know, generate the interest.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and I suppose what's just coming to me now is that I just, up until quite recently, I've not had the energy.
Mm,
I've,
okay.
I've been, I mean, I talk about watering you and, you know, watering cans. I've got watering cans everywhere. My watering can was pretty empty. I mean, it had a big hole in it
Mm,
um, for quite a long time.
mm,
So I think it's recognizing maybe that how big's the hole now? I'd say I haven't got a hole anymore. It's kind of
mm.
healed over.
What
Mm.
changed?
I've done a lot of work. Um, I've put a lot of time and energy into, yeah, I have put a lot of time and energy into healing. Um, but I think also, my one of my main goals was to get my girls into their adult lives healthy, healed, and happy. And I do feel that I've achieved that.
Mm,
But it's now for me to recognize that actually I can do I can do this
Mm. Mhm.
and
What
just get on and do it.
what's important about it for you? What is the thing that drives you, first of all, to have held on to this despite the things that have happened in your life and things that have made it difficult for or even just prevented you from having the energy that you wanted? And still here you are now, the hole in the watering can is no longer there. Now you're feeling something again. What's important about this for you?
It's such a good question. What is important to me about this? I'm looking at the book. I think I put my heart and soul into this, and
Mm.
so did 9 people who shared their stories, and the number of people it's already helped is amazing. And I just think I have an opportunity to reach more people, and I don't know why that number came into my head. I have no idea. I used to ask because what I haven't told you, I don't know how much time we've got, but um, what I haven't told you is this first book came out the year Rob was very, very poorly.
Mhm.
And I don't know what possessed me, Paul, but I had 1,500 copies of it printed. And I literally had to turn my back on that because I needed to be with Rob for his last 5 months, as it turns out. We never know how long we've got, do we? But that was how long he had, um, as it turned out. And I was with him every single day. But every day I would ask, how many books do I need to take out with me? And over, even when he died, I'd still ask. And it got to about 2017. Um, and I woke up one morning, I thought, oh my goodness, I can't really keep doing that. I can't keep gifting copies of my book.
Mhm.
And I actually made a pact with myself because when this one came out, that I wouldn't gift it. I would sell it
Mhm.
because by that point I'd gifted about 800 copies of this one.
Mhm.
So they're out there and they're doing whatever they're meant to be doing. And I was okay with that. I just think that, oh, you know what it is? Just come to me.
Mm. Okay.
It's about the value of this one.
The
The
second
value is
book, The Grief
so,
Garden Path.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Because one of the hardest things we ever have to face as a human being is grief. The death of a loved one, somebody that we've loved. I always say, great love, great grief.
Mhm.
If I can reach, for example, that number of people, and I can make them feel a tiny bit better, that's quite an achievement, isn't it?
Hmm. So it sounds like the outcome for you now is how many people that it could help, the impact that it can make for people.
Yeah,
And it seems like that is based on kind of your experience too. Like people being able to get from the book what you put into it. You said, you put your heart and soul into this. And so it sounds like the intention there was for people to be able to have an experience with their own grief that they can still come to a certain type of place, a good place, if that's the word we want to use. You tell me.
I, I had somebody the other day, and she's allowed me to share this. I started a bereavement cafe a couple of months ago.
Hmm.
John persuaded me to start it, and this lady shared with me about her son who died at work.
Hmm.
He was 20, and it's been 2.5 years since his accident, and they're just coming to the end of the court process. And I just knew that I had to tell her about Julie's story, which is in the book,
Mm-hmm.
which is the loss of a loved child. There's a loss of a loved baby, child, sibling, parent, grandparent, husband, partner, wife, partner, friend, and pet. Um, but she went away with a copy of it, and she messaged me the next day, which was on the Saturday, and she said, "Thank you so much for writing this, Julie, because it's really helped me feel like what I'm going through is normal."
Mm.
And actually, that's made me feel a whole lot better.
So you've just said, Julie, like that the person reading the book said it makes the experience feel normal. And what I wrote down in my little notes here is normalizing grief. What, how did you respond to that comment that that person had shared to you? What did that comment mean to you?
Wow, it just every time I get a comment like that, it it just I, I think if people speak with their lives, they reach people's lives, and that's what Julie's story did.
Mm,
Um, I think, yeah, it because I think we can feel very alone in our grief. I think we
mhm,
can feel as though we're the only ones that are feeling like we feel, and it's like you're on a different planet. So,
mhm.
yeah.
Okay, so you have this goal that you're kind of bringing back to life now of wanting to get this book out. And you shared, get it out to more people, and you shared that this is important to you because people have been responding favorably to it. Your heart and soul is in it, and it helps people. It truly does help people with their experience. So what is this? This is the second question then, Julie. So hovering on this comma, what is this experience creating for you? Because it sounds like this is all real time for you right now. You're not telling a story of the past. This is where you're at now. What is this
Mm.
creating for you?
Oh, I suppose it's just it just feels a bit sort of frustrating. I don't know whether the word's frustrating.
Hmm. What's
You
frustrating
know,
about it?
well, I think I'm frustrated with myself because I know I've got something that can really help people. I know that I have got the energy now and the time to put into it. But I think because for so long I've had so many things happen that have taken me
Mm,
off track that I I haven't truly, I would say I haven't really truly focused
mm.
for a long time.
It sounds like there's been things in that space. You said, I've got the time and the energy now, but it also seems like you've got the space now too. There have been so many things.
Mm.
There's never any good, bad, right,
Kind of
or
like
wrong in
waiting.
this, but there's been other
I'm kind of
things
like
that have been
waiting for the next
occupying you.
thing.
Mm,
Mm.
waiting. Okay.
So while I'm waiting, I'm wasting precious time,
Mm,
aren't
feels like you're wasting time. Okay. And yet here you are. You said even as of yesterday, like this now is starting to have a new pull.
I? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What do you think prompted that?
I don't know. This it's like when I was 11, isn't it? And I knew I was going to write a book. No idea where it was going to go or if it was ever going to happen. And it has happened. It's like it needs to mean something.
Mm. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because you wrote the book. If we go back to your 11-year-old self and the being told or being laughed at by that adult, that teacher, you wrote the book though. So it seems like there's something else at play here.
the word that's coming up is money.
Mm.
Um, I didn't have a problem gifting, gifting
The
copies
first
of
book.
the first book. Um, what is it about? I don't know. What is it about? I'll tell you what, I mean, I don't know if you ever, whether you have The Apprentice over in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So last week it was I only watched the final last week, and one of the finalists was saying, well, it's there's more to my business than just money. And Lord Sugar, who's the person that does The Apprentice over here,
Mm-hmm.
he he's I don't know if he does it over in America as well, but I don't think he does. He said there is nothing more important than making money.
Mm.
There is nothing more important in business than making money.
Mm.
And that just doesn't sit right with me.
Okay.
Because for me, that isn't what it's all about. The byproduct of if I was to achieve this goal would be that I would be able to do more, good work. I'd potentially be able to publish other authors.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be able to, yeah, I'll be able to do some nice things. But ultimately, that isn't what it's all about for me.
Yeah,
And I think
I can hear that.
I think in business, yeah,
Well, I was gonna say, and folks can't see your facial expressions, but you're definitely like this has really got you thoughtful and thinking and considering. What I'm hearing you say is, that person's statement on that TV show was prompted and motivated by whatever it was that prompted and motivated that person, and it is what it is, right? But that didn't trigger the same response or reaction in you. Like you had a different reaction to that. So on the one hand, you've got this goal of wanting your book to reach 50,000 people or more, I'm assuming. And on the other hand, there's this kind of perception about doing it for money having to be part of it, people having beliefs or saying that money's the most important thing. There's some dissonance between these two ends, isn't there?
yeah, yeah.
What's the most important outcome for you with this book?
Think I I think that it really gets out there, and
Mm,
you know it does what it's meant to do, but with more people.
mm. So
Mm.
you've never once said, I want to, I mean, we can replay the recording, but I haven't heard you say specifically, I want to make a certain amount in sales. I haven't heard you say specifically, I need a certain number of outlets to be selling the book. You've always said, I want this many people to have it. I want it to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, I know what that income wise, I know what that would generate,
Hmm.
which I suppose Alan Sugar would be quite happy about.
Mm. How would you feel about that?
That would it would feel I don't know. Money's never been a driving force for me.
Hmm. Okay.
It's important, don't get me wrong. We have to put a roof over our heads, we have to put food on the table and clothes on our backs. That's really important. But actually, being truly happy in life, I think is, I'm very, very fortunate that despite everything, we have got that.
Yeah. Julie, tell me if I'm off base on this, but this is just me as an observer over here. It almost sounds like you really want to get this book out, but what is holding you back from it is the belief that you should be doing it for money and in order to make money. Like it seems like this guy's voice is sitting on your shoulder saying, "Well, if you're not doing it to make a lot of money, then you're not doing it right."
Mm. Yes. But who's to say that, do you know what's just come to me? I was
Mm.
told many, 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 many years ago. You heard of Richard Branson, haven't you?
Oh yeah, we know him over here.
So I was likened to him at one point
Hmm.
without the beard. I haven't got a beard, as you can probably see. I haven't got a beard. Um, he has a different kind of approach. It's about the experience. It's about the people
Hmm.
that are involved in his business, and actually this is really helping. This is really helping because I can do it like I want to do it, can't I? I don't have to. I don't have to adhere to the, yeah.
Well, and it seems like that was always the case. That's how you approached the first book, and you got that out there to a lot of people. And you didn't say this specifically, but it sounded like that wasn't necessarily a money maker for you. This second book, you said you wanted to do it differently. You said you would like to generate some money from it, and therefore something is keeping it there because now that belief has somehow kind of entrapped this book. But now what I'm hearing you say is money isn't necessarily the most important outcome. You want to get it out there and you can kind of go about it however you want to go about it.
Hmm. Yeah. I could just need to just go for it, don't I?
Well, that's the question. I mean, you get to decide, right? It seems like something's shifting for you though. What's changing?
Well, I was hovering, wasn't I? I'll tell you, I feel as though I'm kind of like beginning to slide down the comma.
Okay.
Whee! Yeah,
Nice.
just just enjoy it.
Yeah, your demeanor is changing. I mean, you're smiling now and I mean,
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing, Julie. Just enjoy it. Enjoy this. You've done the hard work, and that has been hard work putting this together. I can
mhm.
assure you. You know, it's not just my heart and my soul. It's my clinical knowledge. It's all those people. It's everything that I've yeah it, yeah. I'm beginning to kind of like think, we I can just yeah, just
Okay.
go for it and see what happens. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, I can definitely sense the shift in you, and it seems like there was a belief in there and the money piece. Nobody never once have we said, "Oh, do it for free, you don't have to make money," but like there was something about the way in which money played a role in this that seemed to be kind of
Yeah,
holding on to it,
that's
didn't it?
really interesting. I didn't
Mm,
realize,
mhm.
honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
let's go to the next question then. So the question is, what did you learn about yourself? But maybe the better way to phrase that is, what are you learning about yourself, or what do you think this comma is going to help you learn about yourself?
Well, the word that came up was value. It's about valuing um, what I've created, and actually giving giving the world what I created, um, or giving the people that need it. And let's face it, we all have to face death at some point, don't we?
Hmm.
Um, and the third one's going to be on its way. So I need to do something. I feel as though I need to do this one justice, actually.
Mm. You didn't share that with us yet. And something just came up for me. You said the third one's on its way. It's almost like this one's kind of like holding up the line.
Yeah, I gave this lot away. This one's gonna um yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I feel quite I'll be honest, I feel quite excited.
Okay. What
Mm.
what's exciting for you now?
Well, like tomorrow I can yeah, I can just yeah, I can just I'll go to Austin's to the their main head office tomorrow. Um and and then I can make phone calls. You know, I can start potentially getting it out there. And if it, if I, all my parents ever said to me was, just do your best.
Hmm.
And, and I guess that's all I can do is do my best.
But you're smiling, so it sounds like your best may actually be very good things. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of possibility and potential here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What change? This is the fourth question. You've kind of already started answering it, but what changes for you, or what do you think will change for you as a result of sitting on this comma and where you're landing with it now?
We'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Mm. What would you like to change for you?
I think just take away that worry. Yeah.
Take away the
And,
worry.
and kind of that, that whenever I've listened to your podcast, I've always, you talk about being stuck. And I think I I have been stuck for a very long time, for various reasons, but from a business perspective, from my own achievements with my business and with the work that I do, I think it's time now for me to, you know, start flying again
Hmm. That sounds really
instead
powerful.
of just sitting in the nest.
What does flying look like for you?
Well, having just been hovering, it's like whee! It's like it's just like taking off, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and you've used that term specifically a couple of times, we. What's important about that for you? Because it seems like that's significant.
Yeah, I remember when I was little, going down what we used to call the Big Dipper,
Uh-huh.
in the car, and we used to go wee like this, and your stomach kind of. Yeah, I haven't felt that kind of excitement for a very long time.
Mm.
I think it would be really nice to reconnect with that.
Well, and it seems excitement, a little bit of anticipation, a little bit of unknown, a little bit of risk, a little bit of danger, but in a safe way. It seems like there's a lot of things packed into that we that are all important.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd
Mm.
say since I was 11, I haven't really felt that
Mm.
kind of excitement. Mm,
Interesting. Interesting because of what you shared with us about your 11-year-old self.
mm.
It sounds like a big shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, then let's go to the next question because that seems like it makes sense. So, Julie, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
It just looks like freedom and excitement and a life, just full of possibility, really, personally and professionally. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
You did say that you kind of already know what your next step is. You said you were gonna take some actions. You were gonna go and talk to, was it you shared this a moment ago and I didn't write it down, but you said, I know where I'm gonna go tomorrow. What else? What are some of your other next steps to help you get off this comma?
So I've got other funeral directors that I could contact, but have a proper conversation with them, and actually, um, also sort of celebrants and um, counselors, psychotherapists, um, really start to connect with them
Hmm.
and start just spreading the word, really.
Yeah.
Um,
You said have conversations and connect a couple of times. What's the significance of that part of getting off the comma?
I think it's me having a voice again, and actually having the confidence and the energy to, because I love, as I said earlier, isn't it? I love people, and actually, that's what it's going to do for me. It's going to get me, you know, yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you sound excited about it, and I guess the question I want to ask is, what does that voice sound like? How will it be different?
I think it's going to have energy in it, and I think it's going to, yeah, it's just going to be, it's me finally beginning to, you know, come back to life again myself, um, yeah, because it
Hmm.
is possible, and it's about giving people that hope, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got so much to share. And like you said, the hard work is done, but there's other hard work, right? Like the hard work of creation is done, and now this is a whole different phase
Yeah,
of the conversations, the connections, and the kind of enrollment, if you will, of getting people on board with your vision or getting people to see the benefits of the book. Or it seems like there's also something else in there unique and personal for you about this next stage.
yeah,
Well, this has been such a powerful story, and especially this kind of experience bridging the gap from childhood to today, and what does possibility look like, I think is really going to resonate. Julie, as you look back over the conversation that we've had, what would you acknowledge yourself for?
probably tenacity.
Mm.
Yeah,
Why
brave.
tenacity?
Being, well, tenacity, I suppose that I've still stuck in there, kept on
Hmm.
going, even though there've been times where, I didn't think I could carry on.
Mm. Well, you've been showing us the way, right? Isn't that what your books are about?
Yeah,
Yeah. I see,
yeah,
I want to acknowledge you because I see that in particularly in what you've shared today, from 11-year-old Julie to all of these rich life experiences to even just this conversation, like that tenacity, like, okay, I may feel a certain way about it, I may go in and out of places, I may set things aside for a little while, but even though you set this aside for a while and we're feeling stuck, then here you are again. But like, here I am. Like, it's time to dust it off again. It's time to revisit this. That's tenacity.
yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Julie, tell us how and where can people find you? We're going to put it all in the show notes, obviously, so people can click on the links. But where can people find you if they wanted to learn more about you? Obviously, if they're interested in the books, or just wanted to reach out and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, so the main place really is my website, and social media. So yeah, those are the main places. And as you say, you've got the links for those. So
Yeah. But you've got your website, you've got Facebook, a couple of Instagrams, and even X, formerly known as Twitter.
yes,
Great.
yes.
One other thing that we do with every guest is, because it's an important part of your story, and also because it's an important part of what we stand for on the podcast, which is lifting people up, creating a space to share voices and stories, and also, giving voice to folks who maybe don't always get the opportunity. So we call it acknowledgments. And basically, who would you like to acknowledge or give a voice to or boost? And that could be a creator or a cause or an organization or somebody in your immediate circle. Who would you like to acknowledge? And we'll put that in the show notes as well.
So somebody who started a charity, which is called the Good Grief Trust. Um, they wrote the foreword to the Grief Garden Path gift book,
Mm,
and the reason I chose to support the charity with the book, so £1 from every copy goes to the Good Grief Trust, and I think about £1,500 has gone so far with raffles and different
nice.
things, and also sales. It's because it's an umbrella charity, so they have about over 1,000 charities themselves underneath that umbrella. So people can from the UK can go there
Hmm.
and access support, because support's really important. So yeah, so I kind of feel as though I'm supporting all the charities.
Yeah, well, and all centering around grief, right? Which is really the thing that your books and your work currently focuses on.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice, nice.
yeah.
And then you had another acknowledgement as well.
Yeah, so the Disability Resource Centre, I've just become a trustee for them. And yeah, I just wanted to mention them really because they're very local
Mm.
to here. They're not a national charity, but I just think it's really important again that people receive support. Rob and I didn't I didn't look for support when I was with Rob,
Mm.
and I know that we would have really benefited from um, having support if we'd have known about it. So I think I've become part of that charity to maybe raise the profile and to kind of begin to get, Disability Resource Centre known about them, because they're an
Mhm.
amazing charity, been going 30 odd years. And
Wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful. Well, and I think also, what I appreciate about this is not only is this important to you and your story, but also folks who are near you who, are looking for support can look to these organizations and check them out and see about taking advantage of those. And folks who are listening from other places in the world or other places even in your own country who maybe they don't have that nearby can look for something similar in their neighborhood. And if there's not, maybe that's their call to action and maybe they start to set up something themselves and kind of follow your
yeah,
example. So
yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing these things. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your experience with us, letting us be part of the journey as you kind of explore what's next for you, since you have been hovering on this comma. And I will personally look forward to the conversations that we'll have off the microphone. And thank you so much for being part of the show today, Julie.
Well, no, thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, have a great week ahead, and I will be talking to you again soon. What an honor and a privilege it is for me to witness these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way too. I invite you to think about what you learned from this conversation. What stood out for you? What challenged you? what inspired you? And I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling and reflection. It can be magical to set aside your expectations and just let the thoughts flow out of your head and onto paper, and surprises can reveal themselves to you. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Meanwhile, be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast here on this platform. Also, follow me on social media at Off the Comma. Interact with the posts, share what you learned from each episode, or just share your thoughts about the topic in general. And check out my website for workshops, events, and updates. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.